She used to always say, "Suno sabki, pan karo man ki."
And once you visit Oman and you see how,
I think you need to have a lot of self-awareness.
The biggest challenge is that people actually are self-doubting.
So I had the opportunity to practice 4 times every week on school time.
The motto is not to be the first Indian or the best Indian.
I do 70% of my sessions for preparing on my strength.
Bhushan, keep
Yes.
the Sports Champ magazine going because you inspire all of us in school.
That when I played first time for India, it was at the age of 20.
The other thing that's also helped me greatly is like the yoga.
I don't think any sportsman can achieve anything without family support.
Hard work plus courage is equal to champion.
Try to work something on the brand you have.
Strong grassroots training system. I think that will really help our generation.
That, if I can walk around, if I can run around like a normal person, I might as well drive it like a normal person.
The experiences that is being shared on this platform I think is priceless.
Hats off to you for really encouraging sports in the youngsters.
It's so amazing that Mr. Bhushan, you have taken upon yourself.
So this platforms gives every educators a boost to think. And
I would like to tell all the educationists that let us not give sports like a stepmotherly treatment.
Your initiative taken, Bhushan, I really appreciate that. This was literally missing.
Goal setting, I feel, basically can be achieved only if they are your own personal goals.
Hello everyone, welcome to Sports Champ Live Talk Show. I'm Bhushan Thakur, founder and editor-in-chief of Sports Champ, a sports education magazine, and your host for today's live talk show. We are happy to start an exclusive series on Indian sports legends, where I'll be having the privilege and honor to interact with top sports legends of our country from various sports who have made us all proud in national and international arena. And this exclusive series will definitely guide and inspire many young and upcoming champions of India and also sports enthusiasts. Today we have a very special guest with us, a hero and a legend in the field of tennis, Mr. Nandan from Pune, Maharashtra, who has spent past 45 years on a tennis court. The first 15 years playing as a professional player, which saw him win 3 national single championship titles, 8 national double titles, a World University Games silver medal, an Asian Games silver medal, among his countless other national and international titles. He has represented India in the prestigious Davis Cup Championship from 1978 to 1986. Over the past 30 years, he has been teaching tennis and has put more players on the international path of tennis than almost any other coach in India. Some of the prominent players he has worked with include Leander Paes, Rohan Bopanna, Ram Kumar, among his others. Winner of the Chhatrapati Award and the Dadoji Kondev Award presented by the government of Maharashtra, he has last year been conferred the Dhyan Chand Award for lifetime services to tennis by the government of India. Welcome to the show.
Thank you,
Nandan. Mr. Nandan.
Thank you.
You have asked me to.
Nandan is good. Nandan is good, Bhushan. Nandan is good.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
So, what do you think about the Sports Champ platform and this exclusive series which we have started on Indian sports legends?
But I think, first of all, it's fabulous. I was going through a lot of other interviews that you've done, and I think just to be able to, get a point of view of all these fabulous sportsmen who were on this show before me, to be able to get their, get their ideas out. You had educators, you had sports persons, and to have them out there expressing their views, that itself is a major education for just about everybody who's watching this show today. I think when you actually go into the mind of a top level sportsman, you had Kamlesh, you had so many others, top sportsmen think differently. They just think differently. And so to be able to delve in there and get their point of view, I think it's fantastic. It's a great job that you've done. And I hope there's going to be a lot many more coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Nandan. So we start with a small Sport Champ challenge, and which is I'll ask you 3 words and you have to instantly tell me what first thing comes in your mind after listening to these words.
Okay.
So are you ready?
Yeah.
The first one is faith.
Faith. Oh, self-belief.
Okay. Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Just helping to achieve goals.
Okay. And my last one is devotion.
Once again, it comes back to faith.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Correct. Tell us about your childhood and how did you develop interest towards tennis, Mr. Nandan?
Yeah, so I think we are actually now going back almost to the year 1971 or 71, when I actually started playing tennis. So which actually puts me at the age of about 11 or almost 12, and which in today's day is unheard of. Because by now, by the time the kids are 5 and 6, the parents want them to be a Roger Federer or a Serena Williams, or at least a Sania Mirza or a Leander. So for me to start at the age of 12 was late. Now, in those days, there was never any issue of playing because you wanted to be a champion. I think your parents put you into sport because they wanted you to be outdoors. And that's exactly why it should be even today. So I think in the year 1971, my father, who was a branch manager with the Life Insurance Corporation of India, was transferred to a small little town called Parbhani, which is in the interiors of Marathwada. And it was a non-family station. So the only time that we could visit was during our summer vacations or Diwali vacations. And during one such summer vacation in 1971, the only thing to do in Parbhani was to eat mangoes, nothing else. So the result was there for all to see. And so my father said that, look, there is an officers club here where I play tennis. And, just eating mangoes is not doing much for your weight. So you need to really get going and start some sport. And that's how I started tennis. My father actually was a very good, not just a tennis player, but also a table tennis player. My mother was also a badminton player. So I think that interest started from there. And then there was no looking back. But that's how I started.
So what used to be your parents' role in making you a champion and how they used to support you in the beginning years of your career as starting tennis?
Yeah. So I think straight away, coming from that sporting background, the issue of sports not taking a precedence over studies never happened. Sports was always given precedence. My sister actually, though was not a very active sportsman, she actually was a very good rifle shooter. She was also into judo.
Wow.
So, my parents encouraged both the children to be in sport, some sport. As far as I was concerned, I think, like I said, the biggest advantage I had was the fact that my father and my mother were very clear that and they had checked with a few people. My father had some friends like Dr. G.A. Ranade, who was at that time the godfather of at least Maharashtra tennis, and an absolute gem of a man. I mean, I think I owe my entire career to Dr. G.A. Ranade. And so they had spoken to Dr. G.A. Ranade, who had a lot of knowledge of tennis. And he was very clear that, I think this boy has talent. And I think you should push him into the sport, even if he doesn't want to be in it. Not wanting to be in it was never a choice in my case because I always wanted to be in it. And so my father didn't look back. The only advice that he did give was, he said, as far as tennis is concerned, or any sport is concerned, there is no guarantee after your sporting career is over as to what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And so if you come from a business class, or if you come from let's say a rich class, you will have something to fall back upon. You have your father's business, or you have your father's parents' wealth to fall back on. As far as we are concerned, we are middle class people, and we will leave you as much as we can. But that is not sufficient for you to sustain yourself the rest of your life. So if you're going to be into sport, make sure you go into sport with the idea of excelling at it, so that the rest of your life is easy for you, because there's nothing to fall back on except that sport that you excel in. And I think that was a major driving force for me.
And having a family of sports person, actually, that helps a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
And who was your mentor or coach, and how did your coach help you to achieve your goals?
Yeah, so actually, there was the system. We always played at Deccan Gymkhana in Pune. That's where I grew up, and that was my second home. And so officially, of course, we had many coaches who were part of the coaching system of the Deccan Gymkhana. We started off with Anantrao Zog. Then there was Dattaji Shinde, who were big names in those days in the field of coaching. And then, of course, there was Mr. S.P. Gosavi. And so if you if you want me to call somebody my mentor, I think it would have to be Mr. S.P. Gosavi. And I think to a large extent, he shaped my career. He shaped my thinking processes. And it would be wrong for me to call him my coach. It would be even wrong to call him my mentor, to the extent that, I think everybody called Mr. Gosavi Puppy. Puppy was his pet name. For me, he was always Papa. For me, he was always Papa, not Puppy, because that's what he was. He was a father to me. And so even today, I mean, I get very emotional. He passed away a few years ago, but even today, I get very, very emotional when I speak about him, because he really helped me not just sort out issues which were on the tennis court, but even off the court. When you're 18, you have a lot of issues. You have, money issues, girlfriend issues, whatever. But he was always there to give me the correct advice and not push me into anything, but giving me the various choices I had and then allowing me to make up my mind. So he would definitely be one of my mentors. At that point, we also had a system where a lot of these senior members who were former good players made it a point to play with the young juniors who were coming up. And then they would give them tips on how to play singles, how to play doubles. So we had Dr. Arun Date, who at that time was very, very good. And he was a great thinker on court. So he helped me a lot with the thinking processes, the mental game that we always talk about. That was something that came to me from him. And so apart from these two, there were countless other Deccan Gymkhana members that I owe my career to. It could even be the local, the local Kirana wala who used to play at the club, but he used to say, "Are Nandan, you're abhi 12 saal ke ho gaye, chalo aa jao hamare group mein khelo." And so with every group, I learned something new. There were seniors, there were juniors, there were veterans, but you learned something new by just playing with all these people. And then, of course, above all of these people, there was Dr. G.A. Ranade. Like I said, he was the guardian angel of tennis in Pune. And through him, he actually showed me the path to international tennis. He was always there every step of my way. I still remember, even when I was sick, he was a doctor by profession. Even when I was sick, my mother tells me a story that I had something like pneumonia because of the Panchit floods in 62, 61, 62. And he actually sat in my house with me when I was barely 3 years old for 72 hours till I recovered. So that was the kind of influence that he had on me. And those were the kind of people that we had at that time. They were larger than life, and they would not hesitate to do whatever they had to do for sport, not just tennis, for any sport. So that's how we grew up.
You had a fantastic support system, I guess.
Yes, we did.
And the type of relation with your mentor, I wish to know thought from your side. What type of relation you suggest should be there between a coach and a student? Whether it should be a professional relation or it should be a bond between each other, which will actually get them or take them to the higher level or a longer period of time?
That's a fabulous question, because I've always believed that the coach-student relationship has to be, and I think it's best answered in Hindi or Marathi, as a guru-shishya relationship, where a shishya will always sit at a guru's feet and learn from him. But there has to come a point when a guru also has to say that, I think you've now come to a stage where I think I have imparted whatever knowledge I have for you. So now I would suggest that you go to someone else, who I can recommend, who can take it to a higher level. And I think that bond, a lot of times today, and this is my grouse against a lot of tennis coaches today, that we always taught tennis because we wanted our kids to sort of grow and, emulate what we did in our lives. But I think a lot of coaches today are teaching tennis because it's just a way of life for them. It's a way of earning money. So instead of going to the bank and earning as a banker or the railways or the whatever industry, you're going to a tennis court and earning your living. And that then doesn't give you the passion to teach.
Correct. Fantastic piece of advice, I guess. Coming back to the other question is, what used to be your training schedule during your training days, and also what you used to do for mental toughness? That is, it's a very important part in the sports field. And the final one is, what used to be your ultimate goal before starting your training in the beginning?
So, I'm now talking about my childhood, which is 45 years ago or more. Yeah. So at that point in time, this whole concept of training methods, the whole concept of mental toughness, goals, all this paraphernalia to tennis has come in the last few years, and it's good for tennis. I'm not saying it's not good for tennis. It is good for tennis. But the point is that in those days when we were young, we were only told the more the better. So there was a group of us, there were 7-8 of us who would, especially in our summer holidays, we would just come to Deccan Gymkhana at 6:37 in the morning. Dr. Anade made sure we had 1 or 2 tennis courts kept aside for us. And we used to play from 7 to 1, literally. 7 to 1, we would play singles, we would play doubles, we would do training, we would do all kinds of things. At 1 o'clock, all our parents used to bring a tiffin for us from home. And we used to eat the tiffin at home. At the club, we all used to share the tiffin and then take a break at the club itself, start again at 3 and play at 6. So, it was never training. It was always a picnic. And that made it easy. When you come to training, physical training, you just did what you had to. There were no gyms. There were gyms, but the gym concept was not that big in those days. So whatever training we did was on a tennis court, whether it was push-ups, pull-ups, using body. We also did a lot of running. That's one thing we did. So there would be this group of us, of 7 or 8 people, who on every Sunday we would make it a point to run up Simagad Fort. For people who are from Pune listening to this, of course, you know where Simagad is. But that was our goal. Run up Simagad, come down in 50 to 55 minutes. That was for our stamina. I had with me a friend of mine who was a lot senior to me, Ajit Bhandarkar, who was the late Kamal Bhandarkar's, who is the late Kamal Bhandarkar's son. Kamal Bhandarkar, of course, was Sunil Gavaskar's cricket coach. But Ajit was nice enough. He had his own job, he had his own work to do, but he would take time out every single day to come and help me with my training. He said, you would get bored doing it alone. Come, I'll do it with you. I'll push you. There were times when I would be tired running up a hill. He would actually pick me up on his back and carry me to the top of the hill. And that's how we grew. Like I said, so that's where that bond comes in. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't coach student. It was a guru doing something for a shishya. And these are the people that I revere even today. These are the people that I'm in touch with even today. I still go to them, go meet them. And that's how it is. I stay in touch with all these people who have helped me grow up to what I am.
Fantastic. So, Nandan, what was your initial struggles on your journey of becoming a champion? And what was one special thing in you which always keeps you ahead, according to you?
Yeah, so I think the struggles in those days were many. I think the biggest struggles in those days, and probably even today, is the lack of finances. So when we had to play a tournament, for example, in Guwahati, you had to take a train from Pune to Bombay, Mumbai now, Mumbai to Cal, and then change trains and take. So it used to be like 36 to 40 hours to get to Guwahati, get straight onto a tennis court, play 4 or 5 days of matches. The next tournament would be somewhere in Coimbatore. So you were again in a train for about 30 odd hours. So the traveling was horrendous. We were never kept in great hotels or whatever. We were always in dormitories. We were always in small little places, 4 or 5 people to a room. But I think at the end of the day, that's what made us tough. And we said that if we can deal with all this, we can deal with anything in life. We can deal with anything on court, we can deal with anything off court. And I think that for us, that was the biggest education. We would leave our homes and say the circuit in those days used to be from October to around April or March. So we had a continuous almost 6 to 7 months of traveling. And we used to leave home with about 200 rupees in our pocket. And at the end of 6 months, come home with 200 rupees in our pocket and give it back to our parents. And we would self-sustain in those 6 months. This is how we did it. And that was a major growing up for us. And all of us, it wasn't just me. It was Ramesh Krishnan, there was Shankar Krishnan, his cousin, there were the Bhupati brothers, that is Mahesh's uncles. We all went through that. And we all, we had fun doing that. We actually had fun doing that,
What was one special thing in you which you've not answered yet, which keeps you always ahead?
Yeah. So maybe I don't know if it's a good quality or a bad quality, but I'm very hard-headed. If I decide that I need to do something, I won't stop till I get there. So, yeah, that it's that simple. I think with age, I'm a little milder now, but in those days, I was very, very clear that if I had something, I would chase it till it was impossible to get it or till I actually got it. So that was the mental toughness. And once again, it didn't come with any training. It probably was just inherited.
Nandan, one question which arises here is, if you have to evaluate your time of players and current players on the parameter of toughness, so how will you rank the current players in the parameter of toughness? Only one, the type of players you were and the type of working you did. So what we see is there a lot of lack of toughness of players at this moment. So if you have to evaluate, what will be your answer on this?
Yeah, well, I think if you're looking at a sheer physical fitness point of view, I think today's
mental tough.
Mental toughness. I think as far as the mental toughness is concerned, there is no question about the fact that some of us who have had to go through this kind of grind that I spoke about, I think we were mentally very tough. About 10 years back, I actually told 3 or 4 of my students, listen, I'm booking your tickets and you have to go somewhere. And, you have to go from Pune to Delhi. And I said, I'm booking your train tickets. And they said, you mean we're not going to fly? And I said, no, you're not going to fly. You're taking a train. But that's what it's come down to. I think there are a lot of physical luxuries that are on offer today. That being said, those physical luxuries possibly are a necessity now because the kind of physicality that is there in tennis today or all sport today, every sport today is physical. And so when you're working that hard on the court, it's possible that you want that kind of luxury off the court, whether it's a plane or whether it's a hotel, you want that kind of luxury off the court. But that being said, I think this whole, I go to a psychologist and I do this mental training. I think a lot of that mental training comes from the fact that you just grind it out on a tennis court. And that's where it comes from. For me, a major mental kind of fitness comes from the fact that if you're not going to achieve something, then you're going to be left in the doldrums. So that's a huge incentive to work hard. In my case, that was it. I said earlier, my father was very clear that, we have no issues supporting your tennis, but we can do only so much. And after that, if you are not supporting yourself, then you're going to be out on the road. And that's a major factor. And even today, that is why you are seeing sports persons across the country, sports men, women, girls, boys are coming in from smaller towns. They're coming in from not necessarily villages, but smaller towns, 2nd tier, 3rd tier cities, because the hunger to perform is much more in them, simply because they know that if they don't succeed in what they're trying to succeed in, they have no future anywhere else. So that is a major motivator.
Correct. In my journey, I have, as an international player, I have understood this difference by only two words, which is the difference between dedication and devotion. Dedication means you give what you have, your time, your
Absolutely.
energy, your money.
Yeah.
Devotion
Everything.
means
Yeah.
you give yourself. So that is where the mental toughness automatically comes.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Correct.
So, who according to you was your toughest opponent in your time and why?
There's so many guys who've beaten me, so very little too. But that being said, I think
Correct.
for me in India, the toughest opponent I've played is probably Ramesh Krishnan. Because when you look at Ramesh across the court, I mean, he was I think his highest ranking was about number 25 in the world in the men's, fabulous performer, quarterfinals of Grand Slams. But when you actually played Ramesh and you looked at him across the court, he was so insignificant looking. He was 5'7", 6', 5'7". It was only when you started playing him, you realized that this guy is not going to give you anything. If you want to beat him, you have to earn every single point of every single game. He's not going to give you anything away. And he was so accurate. He was just so accurate that, just to play a 1 hour set match with him used to be a struggle, a battle. Because he used to be in one place and you used to be running all over. But that's the kind of opponent that you don't want. You don't want an opponent that doesn't give anything away. You want some free points which you never got from him. And I'm just glad that I was born in his era and not before when his father used to play. Because when I had once spoken to his father, I said, "So, how would you compare yourself to Ramesh?" And he said, "No, Ramesh won't get even 2 games from me." I'm like, here I am struggling to get games from Ramesh, and the father is saying that. Yeah, difficult. That's so for me in India. Ramesh would be the,
Fantastic.
biggest, toughest opponent without a doubt.
Super. So, how you used to plan your goals in tennis, like playing for India for so many years and winning 3 national singles titles, 8 national doubles titles, and also representing India in Davis Cup Championship. So, was there any planning in place, or how did you make it happen?
Yeah, so fortunately for us, when we were, by the time we were 18 or 19, this whole ATP tour, this whole ATP structure had come into place. And so you actually had a sort of thought out plan for you by the Association of Tennis Professionals. So you started with, in those days, what was known as the satellite, which is a group of about 4 tournaments, which, where you have to do well in all 4. You have to do well in all 4 to get some points. Once you got points there, then what you did was you moved ahead and played what was known as the Challengers, which was a higher level of tournament. Then from the Challengers, you moved to the ATP Tour, and from there you moved to the Grand Slams. So there was a definite, well-rehearsed, well-written plan, which was in place. So, but as far as the Indian circuit was concerned, it was, even in those days, it was a little haphazarded. Like I said earlier, there would be one tournament in Mumbai, one in Guwahati, the third one in Coimbatore, the fourth one in Gurgaon, and so it was just picking the right tournaments was a battle. So you actually pick tournaments. So the way I went about it was, normally I would pick 3 weeks in a row, where the first week I would actually pick a tournament which was fairly easy to win. The second one, I would pick a tournament where I had tougher opponents, but if I played well enough, I would still win it. And then the third one I would pick where I had no chance of winning. So I went in a period of about 3 weeks. I would actually go through a phase where I was beating everyone, to the next week where I had to play well to beat someone, and the third week where even if I played well, it was going to be difficult to beat someone.
Fantastic.
So that gave me that entire gamut of players to play against, till we came to a point where I was even doing well in the third week. Once you did that, then you pick the next 3 tournaments at a higher level. So that's how I went about doing my stuff.
One of the super planning I've ever heard of. What was the biggest moment of your life in tennis, if you have to pick one?
I guess at the end of the day, getting the Dhyan Chand Award last year would have to be the proudest moment, because that was a sort of it was like a lifetime achievement. And when your peers, your government, your seniors recognize you for the work you've done, obviously that is something which is very important. In tennis, I guess the first I actually have quite a few. I mean, I think the first one that comes to my mind is 1978, where I won a silver medal in the World University Games in Mexico. And it was only after the whole event was over that I was actually told by some Indian official who was there that I was actually the first Indian to win a medal in any sport at the World University level. So I guess, yeah, I mean, and to date, I don't even know if it's recorded anywhere. But that apart, I mean, one didn't play for the records. But yeah, I think the first 1982 Asian Games, to get a silver medal there, that was the biggie. To win my first nationals in '83, which was amazingly, I mean, given the fact that I played my best tennis between 1978 and 1984, for me to win the nationals in '83 was a bit of a downside for me. I should have been winning much earlier. But somehow, right through from '78, I was in the finals twice, I was in the semis twice, but never won it. So to win that to be called a national champion, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you beat in the finals. Was it a tough opponent? Was it a bad opponent? 20 years down the road, there's a plaque somewhere that says Nandan Bal national champion. And that's important. That's important.
What suggestion you would like to give to sports person in choosing or planning career in sports, and also balancing between sports and studies, which is the biggest challenge for many sports person right now?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the studies part. I'm actually a very big and great advocate that kids have to go to school. Because you see a lot of kids now doing I think what's it called, National Open School or something like that. I think it's called the National Open School, where you don't need to go to school, you just study at home, give exams. For me, that's an absolute, I think it's a mistake. I'll be very blunt about it, because unless you go to school, how do you learn to live with society? That is your training ground to actually be able to mingle with other kids, learn to be a leader, learn to be a follower, learn how to, mix and match with other people, learn to be a team person. Those are social skills that if they don't get learned at the age of 12 and 13, they're not ever going to get learned. So you have a lot of champions who went to National Open School, but today you will see a lot of them are highly egoistical, eccentric, because they've never learned these social skills when they were young. Yes, they're world beaters, or they're the best in the business there is. But that being said, they don't have the kind of respect that people have for people who went to school, got an education. So there's enough time to play tennis or any other sport much later. But I think it's important to go to school early. So that balance, I think we all went to school and we all got our 2 or 3 hours to practice at the end of the day after school. So missing school really is is an option, because that also teaches you about the world, not just about your sport. You can't be sort of single-mindedly into one thing, because then what happens when you're 35 years old and you retire? You have nothing to do for the next whatever life you have left in you. So that schooling is, I think, very important. Sports will always come. By and large, if you look at South Asians, we tend to mature a lot later than most Europeans or Americans. I think a simple reason for that is our parents sort of, treat us with kid gloves till we are 18 or 19. You take a 14-year-old European, he's ready to travel the world alone. But even when the boy is 17 or a girl is 17, and I don't differentiate between boys and girls. Even when they're 17, 18, the mother's still traveling with them, the fathers or grandfathers are traveling with them. When does the kid get a chance to mature? And so because of that, I think we tend. So I think going to school and not earning big accolades when you're under 14 or under 16 is fine. Your ultimate goal is to win the men's and women's. And if that happens at the age of 30 or that happens at the age of 20, how does it matter? If it's going to happen at 30, that means you have to work a little harder at it, longer at it. But so be it.
in leading to the second question is, what guidance you would like to give to players and parents who are currently striving hard to achieve their goals?
For the parents, I'll say only one thing: that don't. I mean, you're aware. You're a coach. You're a player. You know exactly where coaches and players stand in terms of players. But let me repeat it, and I don't mean this as a disrespect to any parents. But
Correct.
first thing, when you put your child into a sport, the idea of putting him into sport is because you want him to be healthy. Then after a couple of years, when your coach tells the parent, hey, I think your child has some talent and maybe we should look into grooming that talent, then yes, you can do other things. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, a parent and a coach have to work in tandem, hand in hand, to develop a child. But everyone has to know his, Lakshman Resha. I'm not going to be happy about a parent and coming and telling me that, listen, I don't think this guy's forehand is like this or this guy's backhand is like this and I think it should be like this. Neither am I going to walk into, I mean, the day the parent comes to me and tells me that, look, I don't think you're working in his forehand, I'm going to go to his house and say, no, I don't think you're feeding him the right food. That's not my job. So your job is to take care of a child in the 8 or 12 hours that he's with you. My job is to take care of the child in the 4 hours that he's with me. And as long as we keep that respect for each other, I think there's no reason why a parent and a child, teacher, a coach can't get along. Secondly, I see a lot of parents comparing their child to other children. He won under 14, वो तो 10 साल का सा under 14 जीत गया, तुम क्या कर रहे हो? You're 13 years old, you're still not winning Pune Open, this, that. And I'm like, why would you want to compare your child to other? Every child is differently abled. Every child has special attributes that some of them may shine earlier, some of them may shine later. So don't put your child down. Be positive with him. I see children coming off a match, and the first thing they hear from a parent is, Aisa kaisa khela? Is this some guy you should have lost to? No. When the child has lost a match, all the more reason that all you need to do at that point is put an arm around his shoulder and say, we'll talk about this later. Or even for that matter, for the coach. Because that first 2 hours after the match, a child doesn't want to hear anything negative. His mind is churning, he's feeling bad, he's sad. So at that point in time, the last thing a coach or a parent wants to do is actually put pressure, let there be more friction. That doesn't need to be there. So essentially, these are simple do's and don'ts that parents and coaches need to follow, especially parents. You have given your child to an expert to work on, then trust his expertise. If you don't trust his expertise, then take him to some other expert. But if you're there with somebody, then make sure that you leave and trust that expert to do his job.
Correct. So this is a story of many sports person across, and if we keep it simple, I guess if we keep it simple, it is better.
Absolutely.
So, Nandan, what is one biggest learning you had in the journey of sports, which you would like to share with all of us?
Oh wow, that's making me sound like a philosopher. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway from being in sport is you get a far better education about life than what you would going through your college and masters and PhDs and whatever, because this teaches you to deal with everything that life throws at you. So the biggest takeaway, of course, there's the money, there's the, fame and adulation, all that comes. It's part of the brickbats are also part of, the process. But you learn to deal with both equally, whether you win, whether you lose. At some point in time, you say, winning is great, but losing is also not bad, simply because it's teaching you something. Unless you lose, you're not going to learn something better. So for me, that is a big plus. And like I said, at the end of the day, I want to get out of this profession or life by having people say that he was a good man. He was a good coach. Everyone knows. I mean, not me specifically, but any coach, I'm saying, who has achieved something in his life. People are always going to say he's a great coach or a good coach or whatever. But at the end of the day, I also want to be known as somebody who cared about his students and not just about what he got out of his profession. And I also want to be known as a good man who was loyal to his students, who was loyal to his friends. That's how I would like to be known. Simple.
Very well said. Very well said.
Thank
My next question is, what will be your suggestion or steps to be taken to develop tennis at grassroots level? And what is one biggest lacuna you see in the world of sports because of which we are not able to achieve desired medals in Olympics?
One lacuna? I think, yeah. Well, I think most importantly, and without a doubt, across all sports, are we doing enough at grassroots level? You know, once we start throwing in and pushing in sports right across from the age of 5 to into not just private schools, but even municipal schools, government schools, public schools, that is when you will actually get people to be aware of what sports is and what sports can do for you. So that is the first step. And without that, not much is going to happen. But for that, there needs to be a different mindset from the part of the government. And to a large extent, even our corporates, because the corporates can surely come in and do a lot for this. I actually work with somebody in Delhi on a program called Toughness, where I'm actually sort of helping a friend of mine pushing this concept where we have more than 4,000 kids from municipal schools in Delhi who come from very low income backgrounds, and we are actually helping them learn tennis, or actually helping them get aware of sport through tennis. So if I can do it with 4,000 or 5,000 kids, there's no reason why the government or the state governments, the local municipal corporations can't get into the act and do it for their own mohallas or towns or cities or the country. But till that happens, you know, people keep talking of a sports culture. You know, we don't have a sports culture is what you hear a lot of in India. Now take a country like Australia, for example, or the US. Not US so much, but yes, Australia, South Africa, and I've seen this where by the time it comes down to the weekend, Friday, Saturday morning, the entire family is at the club. The child is playing something, the father is playing something, the mother has gone for a swim, the daughter or the other child is doing something else, but they are all involved in sport. And it's all at a recreational level. But they know the importance of that, because through that, that's when you go one step higher and you start becoming better. And then, you know, you're into the system of professional play. But that system has to start from grassroots. It has to start with families. You know, I mean, how many parents today, unfortunately, what has happened with our country, and it's happened with Brazil with football, it's happened with a lot of countries with a lot of other sports, but in our country, obviously, there is only one sport that is sort of revered, and we think of them as gods. But you know, I there's no reason they should be revered, because they've, you know, our cricketers have shown that they have been in the top 2 or 3 teams in the world. So why not? But that doesn't mean that other sports should be, you know, neglected. I mean, we've done fabulously well in badminton. Table tennis is growing. Tennis is growing. We had this girl in golf who did so well at the Olympics. You know, she came in, just missed the bronze by a whisker. So let's talk about the other sports and see what we can do for the other sports. Why are we focusing only on one sport? You know, whether it's corporates or whether it's the local family father, you know, the father or the mother in the family that says, "Mera beta to cricket khelega." Why? Why don't you let the child play what he wants to play or she wants to play? She may do better or he may do better at that. You know, so that's the bottom line is that, you know, grassroots level and a sports culture.
Fantastic piece of advice, Nandan sir. And my last question is, what one change you would like to bring in this world?
In this world? Wow.
In this world, yeah, one change.
Well, I'm somebody, I don't know. I'm somebody that tries to stay away from controversy. I'm someone who tries to walk away from friction. And I've always believed that if we can actually, I actually follow someone who believes that the only way forward for humanity is peace and harmony. Whether it's across religion, across nations, across communities, I think the best way forward is, like I said, the best way forward is through communication and not conflict. So that's the theory I believe in. And like I said, I walk away from controversies, I walk away from friction, and I walk away from people who I feel can be negative towards me. Instead of getting into a fight, I prefer to walk away. Peace and harmony. I mean, that seriously, those are the two things that I honestly believe in.
Wow. So this is the change you'd like to bring in this world. And we
That
start
would be
with our
great.
rapid fire round. We'll start
Okay,
with our
that's
rapid fire round here,
that's
where
a
I
tough
have
one.
got 12 questions
Oh
for
boy.
you, and you have to
Okay.
answer it in a word or a sentence maximum.
Okay.
So here we start. My first question is a moment which you cherish in your life.
20th October 1985. I got married that day.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. A moment which you cherish while playing tennis.
The first being in the finals of the Asian Games, 1982. That was my first big moment.
Okay. If you had your human body but head of an animal, which animal would you pick and why?
Bull. I think I would go with the bull because I am hard-headed, and that I'll put my head down and keep at things till I get it done.
Okay. What was the worst thing you ever did as a kid and got away with it?
I honestly don't have an answer to that because we were too busy playing tennis. I think the worst thing that I did and didn't get away with it was wearing a brown T-shirt in a coaching scheme which was for white, so we had to wear white. And I remember I was thrown out of the scheme because I wore a brown T-shirt that day. So I mean that's the worst thing I can think of. I really honestly didn't do. I guess I was just a goody boy.
Okay. One thing world does not know about you.
I think it's best they don't know, no?
No,
I have a lot of private moments, and I have a lot of
maybe
other
you're
interests.
singing. You're like you love singing or something.
No, I
like
don't.
that.
I love singing, but very clearly that's not meant for public because I would lose my friends very easily. But yes, I love singing. And more than singing, I love listening to music. I mean, I could spend hours on end listening to music, and I could spend hours on end watching sports on TV.
Okay. Best advice you have ever received.
I think the best advice I've ever received is by Ramanathan Krishnan. He said, "You can only become a big player if you have a big heart." Simple.
Oh, wow. One food you love the most.
All food, but all food. But yeah, I love my pastas, Italian pastas.
Okay.
Love them.
One thing you would like to change about yourself.
I'd like to change my eating habits because that's now getting to be a point where it's now getting to be detrimental to my health. So I really would like to clean up my eating habits.
Okay. What you miss the most?
What do I miss the most? I think as far as tennis is concerned, I actually miss the camaraderie that came with the sport. I think we were all friends when we were playing. Now you're only opponents.
One person you admire the most.
I mean, so many. I don't want to give a cliched answer, but like I said, as far as I am concerned, the one person that I've always revered in my life was Dr. G.A. Ranade. And I don't really want to go beyond that because there are so many There are so many sporting heroes, political heroes, national heroes, but someone who affected my life was definitely Dr. G.A. Ranade.
And the last two questions is, what is the best phrase or quote you believe the most?
I think if you don't dream big, you won't achieve big. Simple.
And the last question is,
one phrase.
correct. And the last question is, describe yourself, if you can, in 3 words.
Passionate about sports.
Okay, very clear.
Yeah.
Nandan sir, before we log off, what you would like to address to all sports person and sports enthusiasts of India? Before we log off, what you would like to address to all sports person and sports enthusiasts of India?
What I would like to address.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, I would just say there are no shortcuts. You know, whether it's sport or business or anything else, there are no shortcuts. So if you don't give it the single-hearted work ethics that you need to give to succeed, you're not going to succeed. There are going to be distractions. There are going to be hurdles in your path all the time. You know, more so as you grow higher up the ladder of sport or higher up the ladder of business, you know, people are going to pull you down. But like I said, that single-minded devotion, you use that word yourself, devotion. You know, if you have that single-minded devotion, then nothing stops you from bothering about these little things. Like I said earlier, you know, if you have a big heart, you know, all these little small things are something that don't bother you, and you keep working. And that's how you get to where you are, where you need to be.
Very well said. Thank you, Nandan sir, for taking out time and agreeing to share your life journey, which will definitely inspire and motivate many. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Loved it.
Dear viewers, I hope you must have enjoyed the show and learned a lot from this episode as I am. We will keep on bringing such inspiring episodes which will guide many sports persons in their journey of sports. Thank you so much.